Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a topic that really shapes every single classroom: intelligence. We're going to be exploring research material from Dr. Suthendra S.G., and the whole idea is to look at how a much broader understanding of what smart is can change how you see your adolescent students and maybe even how you talk with their parents about it. So, let's get into it.
You know this student. We've all seen them, right? The kid who is an absolutely brilliant artist, but just struggles with algebra. Or that gifted, charismatic speaker who just freezes up when they have to take a written test. Are they less intelligent? Or just maybe, is our definition of smart the real problem here? For way too long, we've been stuck in this simple binary. A student is either smart or they're not. But as Dr. Suthendra S.G.'s work really points out, intelligence isn't like height or weight. You can't just throw it on a scale and get one clean measurement. So what if the whole idea of having one single ruler for intelligence is just wrong?
Okay, so before we go any further, let's just get on the same page. Psychologists pretty much agree on this definition here. Now, notice what it doesn't say. It's not about a grade. It's not about a test score. It's a concept. It's a set of abilities for adapting and thriving in the world. This is our foundation as we start to unpack how we've tried, and well, often failed, to measure it.
So, the first big attempt to really measure intelligence was this effort to boil it all down to a single number. But this one idea, it would end up having some really powerful and frankly very damaging consequences. This idea came from a psychologist named Charles Spearman. He proposed what he called a general intelligence, or a G factor. Basically, he believed there was this one single factor that powered all of our mental abilities. You know, it would explain why someone who's good at one kind of test is often pretty good at others. But this concept, this idea of a single, measurable smartness, well, it led us down a really dangerous road.
You know, the history of the IQ test is a perfect example of how a good idea can get corrupted. It started in France with Alfred Binet. His whole goal was simply to help school children who needed extra support. But then in the US, a guy named Terman adapted these tests to label people, based on this idea that your intelligence score was inherited and fixed. This thinking directly fueled the eugenics movement, leading to forced sterilizations right here in the US. And later, it was adopted and escalated by the Nazis with absolutely horrific results. And listen to this quote from Terman himself. It's genuinely chilling. It just lays bare the ideology behind all this testing. It wasn't about helping students, it was about sorting humanity. A tool that was originally designed for support was twisted into a weapon for discrimination. Thankfully, that is not where the story ends. Not by a long shot. Psychologists started to push back, and they began developing these much more expansive and, frankly, useful views of intelligence, especially for educators.
This right here, this shows the huge shift in thinking. The old view, it just ranked people on one single scale. But Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, it changed the question completely. Instead of asking, how smart are you, Gardner started asking, how are you smart? That simple change, it moves us from just labeling students to actually identifying their unique talents. Gardner's theory gives us a whole new language, a new lens to see our students. That student who just nails it in a debate, that's linguistic intelligence. The athlete's incredible grace and control, that's bodily kinesthetic intelligence. And the kid who always seems to be resolving disputes on the playground, that's interpersonal intelligence. He gives us a way to see these things not as just hobbies, but as totally valid expressions of intellect.
Then there's psychologist Robert Sternberg, who offers another powerful model, maybe a little simpler. He boils it down to 3 key areas. Now, traditional school, it focuses almost entirely on analytical intelligence, book smarts. But Sternberg says that creative intelligence, coming up with new ideas, and practical intelligence, what we might call street smarts, are just as critical for real success in life. His work has been so important in helping teachers value talents that go way beyond what a standard test can measure.
All right, so let's zoom in on 2 of these areas that, let's be honest, traditional tests just completely miss. But they are absolutely crucial for a student's success and just their well-being. We're talking about creativity
and emotional intelligence. So how do we actually foster creativity? There's this fantastic analogy for Sternberg's 5 components, and it's Sherlock Holmes. Think about it. Creativity needs a base of expertise. Sherlock knew all about poisons and secret passages. It needs imaginative thinking to connect the clues. It needs a venturesome personality, someone not afraid to take risks, like chasing thugs. And crucially, it needs intrinsic motivation. He just loved the puzzle and a creative environment, like the support he got from Dr. Watson. Okay, now let's talk about emotional intelligence. We all know people who are academically brilliant, but, well, they just can't read a room or manage their own frustrations. I mean, Sherlock himself was a genius, but he was often totally baffling or even offensive to the people around him. Emotional intelligence is that vital skill of being able to work with emotions in ourselves and in other people. And this isn't some vague, fuzzy concept. It actually breaks down into 4 skills that you can teach and nurture. First, just perceiving emotions in others. Then, understanding why they happen. Next, managing how we express our own emotions. And finally, using all that emotional data to think better, whether it's resolving a conflict or comforting a classmate. Nurturing these skills helps our students, for sure, but it also helps us explain their social development to their parents. So, wow, we've really gone on a journey here, haven't we? From this single, dangerous number all the way to this rich, multifaceted view of what it actually means to be smart. And that brings us to the most important question of all. What is our role as educators in all of this? And that really brings us to the bottom line, the ultimate takeaway here. Our role isn't to measure and to label. It's to see and to cultivate. It's a fundamental shift from being a judge who sorts students to being a gardener who helps every single kind of brilliance grow. And that right there leaves us with the real work. What does this look like in your lesson plans, in the feedback you give, in the very culture of your classroom? How can we create spaces where the logical reasoner and the empathetic leader and the creative artist and the kinesthetic learner all feel seen, all feel valued, and all feel intelligent? That's the challenge and the opportunity this research leaves us with.